Hello and welcome to the Neurodivergence and Mental Health podcast. My name is Sally Nilsson and I'm a psychotherapist, published author, public speaker and mum. I discovered my autism and ADHD aged 56 in March 2021, and having rewritten my life story, I'm on a quest to advocate for neurodivergent community. I hope you enjoy listening to my incredible guests sharing their experiences of autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, Tourette's and OCD. We talk about growing up, education, work and personal stories, and how mental health has played its part in shaping lives. Our conversations cover spectrums, traits, challenges, acceptance and successes. So sit back, relax and find out what it means to feel, think and be different in a neurotypical world. Okay, so thanks very much, Sam, for agreeing to take part in the Neurodivergency and Mental Health podcast. As the name suggests, it's talking about your journey and your differences, and how mental health has, you've been affected by it over the years. And really what I like to do at the beginning is just a nice, simple introduction. So the floor is yours. Please, can you introduce yourself, Sam?
Thank you, Sally, and thank you for having me. My name's Sam. I am a writer and director, predominantly of audio plays, given lockdown. My topics I've been focusing on have been LGBT themed and neurodiversity. I also have a day job as well, where I work in the corporate world, looking at strategy and change and things like that. I'm also a mother, and I live in Warwickshire. And I have just adopted a little puppy.
Oh, goodness. Now, I did see a little photograph and the cutest little thing in the whole world. So what type of puppy have you got and what is its name?
So he's gorgeous. He's 13 weeks old now. He's Cavalier King Charles Spaniel and he's called Doogie.
Oh, heavenly. I can just, with my senses, my super senses, I can smell him.
He's got that puppy smell. Exactly. He's got the puppy smell, and I just hope he doesn't lose it because he's just delicious. He really is so yummy.
I know he won't. Just keep smelling that tummy, and they're absolutely gorgeous. And those soft ears and those dolphin eyes. He'll wrap you around his little paws, all the time. So, where roughly in the country do you live? Did you say?
Warwickshire in the Midlands.
Oh, Warwickshire. Oh, lovely. In August, actually, I'm going on a steam train from Reading to Warwickshire, and I'm really looking forward to it because I'm a bit of a nerdy steam train person, and I'm dying to go to Warwick Castle.
A good choice. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, definitely check that out.
Yeah,
definitely check that out.
Can't wait. Absolutely can't wait. So, how long have you known that you're neurodivergent, and what are your neurodivergencies?
So I was diagnosed autistic. I think it must be 4 years now, 3 or 4 years ago, and I've only just recently been diagnosed formally with ADHD. Suspected it all along. I mean, I'd had my autism diagnosis, and I just felt that it wasn't explaining everything, and I kind of felt like I had a handle under my autistic quirks, predominantly them being sort of sensory things, socialization things, people related things. But then I also had other traits that I just didn't feel like autism was explaining and accounting for, and such as impulsivity, hyperactivity, just the ability to want to do everything that occurs to me, like I write about in Crocodile, it's very, very much driven by my ADHD powers. So, so I've actually been dealing with that for the last 3 or 4 months, and I've said this before, and I will say this again. There's one thing thinking you are something, and then there's another thing knowing it. Actually knowing I was diagnosed with moderate ADHD, and actually to hear that, even though I suspected it and I known it all along, but then you've got to get your brain around it. Okay, how am I going to deal with this now? Add that to my autism. What am I going to do about it? How am I going to handle it? what sort of treatments or what plans or what strategies am I going to put in place now, because I can't not do anything about it. I have to do something about it.
And I
And
do
that's how I felt.
understand. Yeah, I do understand what you're saying, because I'm 56 and was diagnosed. I was going for an autism diagnosis, and I went to see two female neurotypical pathologized psychologists, and they said no, autism traits, which I don't think exists, and but high markers for ADHD, and I had no idea about the ADHD, so I was back to front. So I went away and I thought, no, I don't believe that, because I've done months of reading and listening and watching and everything. So that was £1,000. So £700 further on, I went to this fantastic lady called Sarah Hendricks, who's absolutely amazing. And she diagnosed my autism. She's done 800 assessments over 10 years. So I trust her, and she's autistic as well. And the thing is it's that thing about how important self-diagnosis is for whoever wants it to be. Because if you think you've got it, you're not going to have a flat, well, this might happen, but I don't know why it would. You're not going to go around wanting to be autistic and ADHD, because we know ourselves, don't we, Sam? It's really, really tough, isn't it?
Yep. Yep, definitely. I don't think you would actively go out your way to try to be diagnosed as autistic in ADHD if you weren't. No.
And the ADHD and the autism, I mean, I came across this chap called Paul Micallef on YouTube, and he was brilliant because he did a video about autism versus ADHD, and it really helped me. I did a Venn diagram about it to see where the autism starts and the ADHD finished. So as far as you're concerned, I mean, I know it's only been a few months, but ADHD is just so complex. So's autism. Do you know where yours sort of starts, the autism starts and the ADHD finishes at all?
I think so, because I do feel like I've got a handle on my autism, if you like. And I feel like I've had it, I've been thinking and working about it and writing plays about it and talking to people about it for sort of 3 years now, which is about 48 years in a non-ADHD brain possibly. But so I feel like to use the dog analogy, it's a bit of a poodle now, my autism. I've got it under control. It's okay. It's behaving. I pretty much understand it. I know what to feed it. It's all right. But my ADHD feels like a bit of a lion. It's not tamed enough. And classically, what happened with my ADHD when I got diagnosed is it got worse, which is what happened with my autism when I first got diagnosed, because I stopped masking, and all the masks and everything fell off, and I became more autistic. Everybody told me I became more autistic. I think while I was exploring it and expressing it. And I think with my ADHD, I think the same thing has happened in the last 4 months. I think my intensity has accelerated, and I've wanted everything more. Everything's been heightened. It's like everything's gone into technicolor for me now, and I'm really trying to work through that so that I can get that into a poodle state as well. No disrespect to poodles or lions. It's just as an analogy, just in terms of how well I'm able to control it and the traits, if you like.
I think it's really interesting that they talk about color, because for some I really get this rainbow and color, because I'm knitting a huge rainbow scarf at the moment. I've got rainbow colored sweets. I've got marbles. Everything it literally is in Technicolor at the moment, because I'm so understimulated with the ADHD. You've mentioned that, are you combined? Because you've mentioned impulsive and hyper activity. Do you have any daydreaming and inattentive as well? What type are you? You've said moderate.
It's moderate. It's interesting because what was explained to me was my autism gives me the hyperfocus sort of, so the ability to sit down and write a play in 2 days. I wrote Kitty in 3 days, in 3 separate sit-ins. I just sat in a cupboard and wrote a play. But I think that's my autism hyperfocus. I just say, I am going to sit down and do this, and I am able to do it. And I know that is a challenge with some people with ADHD. So I think my autistic side kind of counteracts that. So like I'm saying, like it's under control, and like I can deploy hyperfocus, and I do it, and I go write that play. But then I get ridiculously bored, and boredom feels like pain, and and I need things, I need stimulation, I need things to be interesting and exciting, and I seek it out. If I can't find it, I need things to, you know, make life interesting for me. So that impulsive kind of need for things to be happening, excitement, you know, drama, that kind of thing. So yeah, it's impulsive and hyperactive. I really struggle to sit down and watch a television program. It's very, very difficult for me to do that. But no, the inattentive doesn't bother me, because as I say, I can kind of kick in my my hyperfocus. General day-to-day boring tasks I can't be doing with, but I am able to focus on something and nail it really well.
It
So
is
it's
really, yeah, it's
just a
really, really
combo.
hard. It is, but it's very hard because you, the autism side takes, it can take a long time before you can get to do it. I'm writing a book at the moment, and it is all in my head. I wrote a book before, and until it is all completely formulated, and even the
Correct.
chapters and everything in my head, and
Yep.
it's and for me, because it's a book about redoing my life through the autism ADHD lens now, called The Alien Within, when it eventually gets written, it's not ready until I've finished with my special interest of learning everything I need to know about autism and ADHD and neurodivergency. Once I know enough about it and I can see how it is for me to write it, at that point, my last book took me 6 months to write, and it was a big book, and it was research about Titanic. It was massive, you know, a massive subject. But this one, once I know, one day that it will come, and I'll just do it, and off it'll go. But it's definitely to do with the autism side and the ADHD side of it, and it can be quite complicated. And something just before we came on, which I think is quite now, is a very good, because we're talking about mental health as well. Last week my phone died, and I had my first recognized meltdown as an autistic person. I knew I'd had a burnout back in April. It lasted about 10 days. But this was a proper meltdown, because my whole world is on my phone. And you're very, very keen to talk about meltdowns, and Doogie's included. So I really would love to ask you about meltdowns and how they are in your life, Sam.
I think what I'm learning now, and this is wet paint theory, as in it's
I
very
love
new
that wet
thinking
paint
for
theory.
me. It's just really wet paint. It's not, you know, it's it's that fresh. I think what I've realized, I have really struggled, definitely this last calendar year, and I think that's because I've had too many points of uncertainty in my life. And what I've realized now that it's July is that I need my home, inverted commas, to be stable.
Mm.
And everything else can go in interesting, you know, directions, and things can happen. But if my home is not stable, and I don't know what's happening in my home, and I can return to it, and things are how I need them to be, without that base, I'm in trouble, and I'm going to have lots of meltdowns. And this year I've had rolling meltdowns. I call them rolling meltdowns. I made it up. That's the expression, because
Yeah, I know what you mean. Exactly.
I'll have one, okay, and I'll get over it, and it might last an hour, it might last a day, but I'll get over it, and it's like a sticking plaster, and I'll maybe go 7 days, but it's not gone, and then something ridiculous will happen, and I will trigger into another meltdown, which I know is related to the first one.
Yes.
And this has been happening to me genuinely the whole of this year. I would say I've been having rolling meltdowns, and I think that's just a lack of stable base. And I think now I've realized that, and as I say, super wet paint the last weekend, that I've realized that I need to have an absolutely stable, I almost need the stable base so I can kick against it. So my ADHD will let me do my exploratory things, you know, writing my plays, you know, contacting agents, having creative concepts, writing a children's book. I randomly wrote a children's book a few months ago, in Garden of Evan. In order for me to be creative and to get my outlets and use my ADHD for good and not bad, I've got to have my stable base. And I honestly think I've blamed all kinds of things for my meltdowns. Honestly, you name it, I've blamed it. Like money, the weather, I mean, literally. But I realize now in July, it's about home, and having the four walls that are safe, and you close the door, And that for me is that, personally, what's been the cause of this rolling endless situation with the meltdowns. And I'm hoping now I'm going to be in recovery because I know that that's what I need.
I think there's three. I mean, even I've got a model of therapy that I follow, but when you've been a psychotherapist for say 5 years, which is how I have, then you start integrating and looking at other bits that suit you and your style of how you talk to clients and things like that. And it's just interesting what you say. I mean, I think it's very simple. I go with the polyvagal theory and Stephen Porges quite a lot, in the sense that it's about safety and it's a lot about stress. And I think your body needs to feel safe. Your environment needs to feel safe. And the people that you have in your life need to feel safe. If you've got those three bits of security and safety in your life, you do feel grounded and you can handle it. So I totally get what you're saying about your house. And I'm not sure how I feel about that, because we rent, and I'm quite looking forward to my next challenge. I never used to be like that. I wanted to be different. But I think that might be my ADHD wanting stimulation and the next best thing, maybe. So I don't know. But I do get what you're saying. And then in autism, I've had clients coming to me with interoception and alexithymia. Well, it's the alexithymia where you can't really put your finger on that particular emotion, and then you just carry on with your busy life and you forget it and you shove it in a filing cabinet. But then 5 days later, I tell you what, that emotion is just going to come back and you're going to have a meltdown about the thing that happened 5 days ago. It's going to come later because 5 days ago you didn't do it, you didn't deal with it then, and it just stays in your body and it comes back and bites you on the bum, and then you get in. I can see how you can get into this rolling meltdown, but I think it can be sometimes so soupish, you don't know which meltdown was for which life event.
Yes. And I've got in the trap of trying to explain them, because sort of people around you need to know, well, why? Okay, now you're calm, brilliant, that's wicked. What was it about? I mean, it's a natural thing to do a post-mortem. And then I feel the need to explain it. So I'll say, oh, well, I was a bit worried about money, or, I was a bit worried because we'd made the plan for the weekend and I didn't really want to do it. Or it doesn't matter. And then what happens is you get 8 excuses in or 8 meltdowns in, and you're like, well, hang on, but first of all, you said it was that, then you said it was that, then you said it was that. And it's because I'm making it up, because I'm trying to make it make sense when it doesn't. And I really like what you're saying about not being able to identify emotion. I struggle with that a lot. I'll feel something that feels so big inside me, I don't understand it, but I want it to stop. And I'll do anything to make it stop. I don't know if it's sad, I don't know if it's happy even, or overwhelmed. It becomes so big that I don't even care what it is. I need it to go away. And I think sometimes I'll have a meltdown to pop it, almost, because I just want it to stop. And I'm not very good at identifying that, the name for the feeling. It's just big, and I don't like it.
So big. And I used to drink because it was so big, I couldn't bear it, and I needed to drink and get into oblivion. And it's, it's sad. I don't care, because I don't drink anymore. I'm in my 40s. I'll never go back to drink, because now I know it's ADHD and meltdowns. I don't need to do it. But if I get to the point of meltdown, there's got to be something. It's got to come out. It's got to say, and you can't get to. Oh, puffy, such a, do you know what I mean when I say puffy? It's an old kind of word, that, old-fashioned word. This thing about going all mindful and all this kind of go and do some exercise. It's too big for that. There's this massive thing. It's got to come out. And actually, for me, I've got to stick headphones on. I've got to put electronica music on, really full blast, and I've got to have a Sally's disco in my kitchen for half an hour, because it hurts. And I've got to get it out. What would you do physically when there's too much and you've got that meltdown? What will you do?
So like you, I will put a song on that I will have to put on so loud, like really, really, really loud. Even when I'm not coping with noise, it doesn't make any difference. I need this tune on, this song that I've decided is my tune for now, that's on so loud. And sometimes that doesn't work. I've tried going in the bath, because sometimes having a bath helps. like the stopping and relaxing, but sometimes that won't work. I've tried walking, I've tried listening to meditation. So some of these fixes are calming down ones, and some of these fixes are ramping up ones. Now the thing is, I can't drink caffeine because I can't add caffeine to me because I don't need it because I'm already like
Yeah.
caffeinated. I haven't drank, well, I've never really drank at all, but I mean, I literally haven't touched alcohol in, how old am I now? 25 years. I mean, I just don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do anything. I can't take stimulants. I can't even take medication. My body doesn't tolerate anything. I once had stitches in my face because I'd had a mole removed, and my body within 2 hours had pushed the stitches out. My body doesn't want anything. It just expels everything. It is not interested. It doesn't want anything kind of adding to it. So, knowing what to do in a meltdown, I would love to know. I don't know whether to feed them or calm them. And I don't think there's always a right answer. I think probably some need feeding and some need calming. But it is literally my life mission to talk about meltdowns and look at different ways of intervening.
On a sort of scientific way, and how I talk to my clients about this, just very, very briefly, we have amygdala on either side of our brain, and it's the size of it looks like a little almond. And what happens is a trigger. So that we're just human beings like everybody else, and we still have a trigger from trauma and things like that happen normally, bad things that happen, life events that are horrible that happen. And we'll get a trigger, and it's intensified because of our neurodivergency. But what happens is the trigger will come and it shoots into our brain. Because I've been studying this on my own with stuff that's been happening. And my God, it goes quick like that. It's so quick, it goes into your amygdala and it shuts you down. And that shutdown could be the meltdown or whatever it is. But we need to feel our feelings as long as we're safe. So, some people get a shutdown and they need to be under a weighted blanket with a hot water bottle closed, and they need to just shut down. And I am saying, do that. Your body is telling you to do that. Stephen Porges from the polyvagal theory, he will tell you to do that because it's a primitive reflex from when we were really, really primitive human beings. And if you're having a shouting, meltdown,
Yeah.
you kind of need to do that as well, because it will offline you. It'll unhook you. It will do whatever it needs to do. But I've seen videos of people who have got more autistic challenges than I have, certainly, and they have a dog, and they have a service dog, and the service dog knows when a big meltdown is coming, and it's all relatively speaking, and they will lick their hands and they will go up to them, and the person can put their arms around them. I mean, this thing where you can stroke your body and rock and do this, it's like havening. If I've ever got any money again, which I never seem to have, I want to do havening because it's fantastic. And you rub yourself, a bath or a weighted blanket can do it as well. It's just getting yourself back. How do you think Doogie, who's only 13 weeks, bless him, but he's got an important role to play. How's Doogie going to help you with your meltdowns?
Well, I mean, I can already tell you, mornings are very difficult for me. I struggle on a morning. And like I said to you, I've just come out of a very difficult few months, having now probably realized the root cause of it. But I was having a bad time this morning because my weight's not good. And I thought I'd been gaining over the weekend, and I got on the scales and I'm not. I'm a really bad weight still. And that plunged me into not a very good place in my head. And I sat on my bed, and he, bless him, he's teeny weeny, managed to jump up on the bed. He came all the way on the bed and he sat on my chest, and I took a photograph of him there, because it's like he knew I'd had bad news, and he just came and laid right on my chest. And the difference I made, it was amazing, because I stopped feeling sorry for myself and gave him a stroke and said, come on, let's go outside and give him a biscuit and stuff. And I stopped thinking about me so much. And I feel like he's almost feels like a divine intervention, it just, like, the fact that he could sense that I wasn't in a good place, and he came and gave me some comfort. He's already winning for me. That
is really, you're saying about wet paint, but this happens, this is like an epiphany, just you and I talking at the moment. the thing is, I mean, there's even something like a cushion, and it's a cushion with a tail, and it purrs and vibrates. And they were using it for people with dementia. But I think that people, you know, well, this is so terrible when we're elderly with autism. God only knows what that's going to be like. But you know, even if you bought a cushion that vibrates and purrs with a tail when you have a meltdown, or a guinea pig or something you can hold or stroke, because it's the different senses. It's stroking that soft fur, it's the smell of them, it's something like that. But it doesn't actually matter what it is, Sam, because as long as you've got, you know, that's why people have the weighted blanket, you know, it's like a hug. When you have autistic people who are very challenged and not able and having a very, very difficult time, they need sometimes to really have very, very strong arms around them to calm them down. And some people say, oh, that's ABA and it's terrible and it's abuse and everything else. Well, not really, because if you're having a really terrible meltdown, you know, I can't go there with ABA and everything. I'm not political, and I don't go pitchforks at dawn, just to add that as well. Different people need different things, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how Doogie continues with you.
Yeah, and I think it's like 12 weeks or 20 weeks you can become a therapy dog, and I'm keen that he does that, because he seems to have a natural intuition. So I'm going to look into him, you know, kind of going sending him on a course, and seeing where that goes. And that was why I got him, because I needed something to love that was for me, you know, just, you know, being quite selfish, but I identified that I wasn't coping, and that I needed something, you know, very specific and personal.
That's so practical. Just going back to mental health and anxiety, is that we can get, it's so easy for us to negatively go into our head, but it's always going to be a good thing and a positive thing to get out of your head and into being practical. So for you to use Doogie in order to do that, that can only be a good thing. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how that's going to go. Now, we're looking at autism for yourself, and I hate that expression, for yourself, for you. Somebody said that. Oh, it's my state agent, actually, that we're saying for yourself. Just say for you. And sorry about that. And I just, you know, going back to sort of, your olden days in the life of Sam, have you got neurodivergency in your family, as far as you know?
So Kitty, my final play of the trilogy I wrote, was loosely based on my grandma, and she wasn't diagnosed or anything. Bless her. She was, she was 89 when she passed away, and so she was diagnosed. But she had lots and lots of quirks and traits, and a lot of people couldn't understand her and found her problematic and very blunt and difficult. And I never found that difficult. I didn't find that challenging at all. I just actually thought it was interesting and amusing. And so when I wrote Kitty, I very much had my grandma in mind. And she really did make tea out of a hot water bottle. Last night's hot water for the tea. So you best not to turn up on a morning. So she did, and she did have the granny hut. And there's quite a few bits and bobs in all of my plays. Most things are true, but on a diagonal, somehow. So yeah, I did definitely say my grandma was. But I don't, and my children, there's there's autism there as well. So yeah, I think more and more people are finding this in their families, aren't they?
They are, but
children, grandchildren.
Yeah, but I'm thinking from even my first book, my great grandfather, who was helmsman on the Titanic. I'm wondering now if he had ADHD, for goodness sake, and well, we know what happened to the ship. Never mind, that's a story for another day. But you picked the most fantastic actress to be Kitty that you could ever pick, because she swears like a trooper, and I do as well, and that must be my sailor and my seafaring background. You've got to tell our listeners, who did you pick for Kitty for this play?
So I actually wrote the play for her. I didn't just pick her because she was interested when I was writing Mole, and it didn't work out for whatever reason, and so it was like, well, why don't I write you a play and make you the title role? So I actually wrote Kitty for Miriam Margolyes, so yeah, the play was, so I had her in my head the entire time as I was writing it. Obviously my grandma with the autism, I had to bring the autism in. But yeah, it was Miriam. So Miriam's personality is just exuberant and fabulous. And I think what I wanted to get across with Kitty as well was, you know, she'd lived this whole massive full life. And I think some younger people often think, you know, older people didn't have a life, and what do they know? They don't know anything. And I think listening to Kitty, you find out all these fabulous things that she was involved in, and kind of the richness of a life. And then, you know, Ray, her granddaughter, who's had the autism ADHD diagnosis, is trying to say to her, come on, Gran, get a diagnosis, stand up for women, particularly women, because we're underdiagnosed. It matters. Go and count. And so the journey she's on during Kitty as they drive in a camper van across Scotland is, you know, should I do it or not? And at the end, spoiler alert, but, you know, she wants to go and have that diagnosis because it matters. You know, knowing who you are matters, not just to you, but to your family and to all of us that are on the
I
spectrum.
can't wait to hear it, because you know, I was so wanted to get you on, and this was your slot for today. But I said to you, know, I'm going to be listening to all those fantastic plays while I go and walk in nature, cloud gazing and trying to dodge. Well, we've just had a thunderstorm, and I'm really looking forward to doing that. But you've just made me think of another really important advocacy for us to concentrate on, because I certainly believe that it is the neurodivergent community who are going to get things done, not government, not policymakers, not people up in, because we're not very good with hierarchy, but we're very big on justice. I think that's really important. Oh goodness, what was I going to say? So my mum's 86 and she's in a care home at the moment, and I am thinking of all these post-war beautiful, wonderful people who are in care homes, but more to the point, it's very close to my heart, but that's a story for another day. Autistic people who are past 80 and they're in hospital. Yeah. And I've just recently seen something which was so horrific and quite PTSD, traumatizing in a way. What happens to neurodivergent people when they're kind of on their own and during COVID, in hospital with all the strip lights, with a big ward, with the noise and the chaos. And I saw some stuff not long ago that I wish I hadn't seen. I can't put it back in my eyes. But I'm, you know, I'm doing it. What do you think about that? Because that is part of your book. But what about these poor old people with autism, for instance?
I think what's going to happen there is what happens to all of us in the wider community, but it's more concentrated, is what will happen to them. My imagine is it will become about their behavior. And so, like you said, you've got strip lights, you've got endless visitors, you've got noise, you've got beep, beep, beep machines. I mean, I'm getting stressed thinking about it. And so what will happen is these autistic people will trigger, and their behavior will then become difficult. And what will happen is they'll medicate the behavior, because that is the classic thing to do. You autistic person have now become difficult, or ADHD person, let's medicate your behavior. Let's give you something to bring you down, to kind of calm you down. And my fear would be that they get medicated instead of, you know, have their needs met.
And this just happened, and without sort of mentioning who the person was, but the consultant called me, and or I called them, and they weren't coming back to me, and I said this person is really struggling and very ill, and they said, oh, this person is becoming very aggressive, and we might need to have an intervention and forms to fill in and everything else. I said, go, just hang on one moment, please. This person that you're talking about is the most amazing, wonderful, caring, fantastic person ever, and is not aggressive. I think this person's autistic, and you need to change the way you're talking about. And my God, did they backpedal? But it was already out there. So what you're saying, I witnessed it myself not long ago, and that's a real problem, and it's something we need to be on top of, I think.
I think we are just massively understood. I know, you know, autistic people get arrested because they're just trying to use their arms as, you know, in gesture to stay away from me, because the worst thing you can do is block our way. You know, if we need to get out and we're not feeling safe, we're going to panic, and we're going to use
loads of eye contact and even touching. Oh my goodness.
Oh, exactly. And so we're going to overload, and we're going to, like, the arms will start going, and we'll physically start moving, and then that could be seen as us then, you know, being aggressive or assaulting a police officer or whatever, but it's not, it's that is what happens under
And somebody was
pressure.
shot. I don't know if it was here in America, but somebody was shot because of that, because they were having a meltdown in public. And what well, the thing about ADHD is that with ADHD, so many people in prison are like 70% of people in prison have got undiagnosed ADHD. And unsurprisingly, and they try to say it's because of poverty, and it's not. It's because of ADHD and problems within the family, because we know that it can be genetic. Our difficulties can be genetic, and it causes a lot of difficulties within relationships and within families. And some families, the whole family is neurodivergent. So it can be really, really hard. But, these are things I hope the powers that be will start thinking about. And I'd like, if I may, Sam, just to move on to another subject, I will want to talk to you so that people know more about these fantastic plays that you've written bionically in lockdown. But what jobs were you doing? How old are you, if you don't mind me asking?
How old am I? I just had my half kitty birthday. I'm 45.
So you're, oh yes, of course, yeah, 45. So you're 45. And so before you were writing plays, which seem quite new, and I know that you've said that you're in the corporate field dealing with strategy and change. Well, we're a complete paradox and anomalies and everything else as well, aren't we? So, how are you doing change then? Because autists aren't great with change.
Well, I do big box change, like big thinking change, strategic change, changing a company's direction, that kind of stuff. And my ability to create things and think about solutions and ideas and business proposals nobody else can is absolutely my forte. So it's about a paradigm shift stuff, not day to day, don't fill this form in, fill this form in. It's not like little change like that. It's bigger strategic stuff. So it kind of really lends well to how my brain works, because I think of big concepts. The other I suppose positive, I've got another positive, is that I don't see obstacles. I just don't see obstacles. So I'll think, right, let's go open this new branch of XYZ, whatever we're doing, and we'll go open it there, and we'll offer this to customers, and we'll do that with customers, and we'll market it like that. And people go, but you can't, because I'm like, nonsense. We'll do this and we'll do it. I just don't see barriers. It occurred to me a few months ago to write a children's book. Not done it before. Doesn't matter, got it done. No, so every time I come across an obstacle, I just go, oh, move it, move on. And I think that really does help me at work, because I do that big thinking, and I don't really get distracted by negative people who try to tell me you can't do it. Not that I'm obstinate and I won't listen to anybody, but sometimes people get anxiety, don't they, about change, and they panic. But I'm the person that goes, come on, I'll shine the light. Let's go do this.
Can I just throw something in there? Because when I was learning about myself, I did this before when I was researching in the Titanic field, is I think, right, who's the biggest person in the field? I need to go to the experts and read the best books, and I will do that straight away. So with ADHD, I found Edward Hallowell and ADHD 2.0, and I listened to it on Audible, and I made notes of the whole book, and it was absolutely fantastic. And he said, there's many of us that we have ideas that are like popcorn, and I immediately went and found the music's popcorn, and that is exactly how my mind works, and it always has done. And I didn't realize what an incredible superpower that is. And but during it, he said, there's this fantastic personality work assessment you can do to see what your working type is like. So I straight away did it, and I was almost exactly like Ned Hallowell, which is really funny. So I can go to somewhere and just do loads of ideas and innovative and popping ideas and ideas and ideas, but you run with them. I'm off now. I've given you your ideas, but I'm not going to be the industrialist.
I'm the same. I'm not the operational person. I'm the ideas person, and then have another idea. I say that always at my job interviews. I don't ever want a massive team to work for me, and I don't want to run anything. But if you want someone to think differently, you want big change, you want to make things happen, then I'll start Monday. But then I always say to them, but please, this is my health warning. I'll turn up on Monday like this. So if you don't want to change, and you don't want to make more money, and you don't want to make a difference, then don't sign me up, because I will turn up on Monday like this. Because it's, and companies say they want to change and they want to do things differently, but my experience over the years is that they don't really want to. So I do try to warn them, look, come on, because I bring an enormous amount of energy and ideas, and people follow me. Like I get a critical mass behind me. People want to get it done. So
but that's fantastic, because you're going to be brilliant. And I'm, relatively speaking, I'm a newbie, but I'm really, really enthusiastic. And I've done lots of things in my life. I've had 23 jobs, and some of them are really rubbish. But I just think, oh, poo, that didn't work. Never mind, have a meltdown, get over it, brush yourself off, try something else. And, the list is endless of the interesting jobs that I've had. But, somebody like you is absolutely fantastic to be an advocate, to be on this big board of, not a board like that, but around this metaphorical table of neurodivergent advocates, to say, come on, we've got to come up with some ideas, we've got to talk to the companies, we've got to do these different things. And I'll tell you what, I'll be there with you, help. And I want to help, because the ideas are absolutely brilliant. So during your life, because we've had such a fantastic talk, we're already more than halfway through, but that's okay. In your life as a whole, can you just think of some little pointers that were huge challenges, and how your mental health was impacted? And what was it? What was, because mental health really, it's three things, isn't it? Stress, anxiety, and depression, maybe addiction or something like that, trauma. Give me some sort of challenges that you're happy to talk about from your past that just sent your mental health off. In what way?
I think the biggest thing that immediately comes to mind is social activities. 80% of the time I can cope with most of life. If I'm in my 20% where I'm not doing so well, I am going to struggle with social stuff. So I can attend some social events, and I have in my life. I have gone to some, and some, dare I admit, I've even enjoyed. But social activities, I spend more energy trying to get out of them in creative ways than just saying no, I can't come, or I'm going to find that difficult. And then when you add food to that, like if it's an eating thing, and then you add other people drinking, I don't like being around people who've been drinking. I like I said to you, I don't drink. I don't do any substances. I don't smoke. I don't even do caffeine. I don't like being around drunk people, because I find them unpredictable, and I like to have quite a controlled environment.
Yes.
So social environment, loads of people, loads of noise. It used to be smoky as well, didn't it? Not anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you add alcohol and the unpredictability and food, and I'm like, there are so many ways that this can go wrong for me. I can't cope. And the energy I have spent worrying, and actually then I add one worse one, which is black tie event. So I don't like getting dressed up. I like to wear my Converse boots and skinny jeans and a t-shirt. It's pretty much my uniform. If you tell me wearing a dress is never going to happen, but if you tell me I have to look smart bothers me. I'm very tall and skinny, and I find it very difficult to get clothes to fit. And from there on, the clothes thing goes to hell. So if I have to be smart as well as everything else, no, it's too hard. So ridiculously, a night out will floor me. So
yeah, so
that's crazy, but
it's funny what you say about music, because I cannot wait. And if you're listening out there in the ether and you run a nightclub and it plays late 80s, early 90s electronica music, including CeCe Peniston and I Want to Make You Sweat Till You Bleed, can you invite me, please? Because I want to come and be on your dance floor for 4 hours. Because I'm the opposite of you. You're having a difficulty with your weight going, losing too much. And I've got a difficulty with 20 pounds. But when I used to go and dance to this fantastic music, I didn't want to go with anyone, but I did, just to have somebody to go with. I don't need anybody. I want to be on your dance floor for 4 hours and just dance my head off, and I'll lose 6 pounds in weight that night. And maybe if I can do it once every couple of weeks, you'll be my best friend. To me, that's heaven. And I love rock concerts and I love things like that. But going down the pub or a social thing, not so keen.
Yeah, I know. No, I just find it boring. And I say boring too much, but I find so many things boring. And it's
What's
probably
not
not really boring.
What's a really not boring thing for you then?
I love going to theatre, which obviously we're not allowed to do. I love going to theatre. I do like going to the cinema as well. I can go out for meals if I know exactly what's going to be on the menu, and being gluten-free and dairy-free is a bit of a pain. So if I can guarantee I'm going to be able to eat something, if you're going to come with me, Sally, on this meal, you're not going to get to eat dessert because I won't be able to sit there long enough. So that might help as well. So if you want to have a quick steak and chips, we're out again, that's fine. I like that. Obviously got the pup, looking forward to being able to take him out when his vaccination's working. I do like exercising, like playing tennis, I like going to the gym, I like swimming. I love writing plays, obviously. And actually the main thing that I like doing is hanging out with my kids and just having fun with them and being daft with them and being silly with them, because they take my stress away. They just stop you taking yourself so seriously. And I've definitely become a different person since having kids. They've been very grounding. My eldest daughter is autistic as well, and she's taught me so much about autism. I was actually talking to her a couple of nights ago at bedtime. It's always a good time to have a chat about her meltdowns and what that feels like inside of her. And it's really interesting having a 9-year-old's perspective on that, because I look at her and I think, what are you going to be like at 45? And the reason I write my plays, the reason I talk to you, the reason I want to talk about these very difficult and personal things is because I want to help my daughter. I want to help other autistic people, because there's nothing out there for us. There's nobody doing this. I'm not interested in an academic dry paper. I'm interested in proper, practical help for autistic people.
Well, I've got something for you then. So I don't know if you've got a pen and paper, but anyway, this will come out. And my last guest was Paul Isaacs, and he's just such a fantastic advocate for autism, and he's autistic himself, and he's just so wonderful. He speaks. He's written 5 books. He speaks at a number of different events. But one of the things is he's just about to start a job with a lady called Alison Knowles, who's started up a fantastic project, but it's going to be much bigger than that, called Ollie and His Superpowers. And it's about a boy who's autistic, and it's for children and adults and teenagers, but it's for children, and it's about being able to talk to children finally in a completely different way, to look at emotions and meltdowns and naming things, and to be able to talk about difficult subjects and mental health and all these different things. And I've only just come across her, but she would be so wonderful. So please look up Alison Knowles and Ollie and His Superpowers, because it's going through schools. She's been to America, and that is absolutely something that I really hope takes off, because we need something different in schools, and at home, and for parents to understand, because chances are the parents probably got a neurodivergency as well, that's undiagnosed. I mean, you're very late being diagnosed, and so was I, being late diagnosed. And let's, well, we've got to just our sort of 12 13 minutes, whatever it is, please tell me about these fantastic plays and why you wrote them, when you wrote them, and why they're so good for late diagnosed people.
So I wrote Crocodile, first of all, in 2.5 days. I went on a writing retreat. I was not in a good place, just come out of a divorce, and I was battered and not feeling very good about myself. And I went away for this writing retreat. I didn't pay any attention because there's people there and they were talking and trying to tell me what to do, and I'm not so good about that. But on the Wednesday lunchtime, this character occurred to me called Crocodile, and I wrote the first sentence of the play, and the rest is history. So I wrote Crocodile in 2.5 days. I wasn't even on a playwriting course. I was just on a random writing course, and like I say, didn't pay any attention. So that was it. Crocodile was done and written as a play for the stage. But then COVID hit and we all got locked down, and I thought, this is crazy, I'm not going to stop there. And then I wrote this other comedy series called Henpire, about 3 lesbians who try to set up kind of a lesbian version of Netflix, and it's a comedy, and it's crazy. But I wrote that, and then we did that as an audio play, and I thought, right, I'm going to get Crocodile done as an audio play. And I'd worked with Ep6 on Henpire. If you do fancy something really, really daft, and it does have autistic lead character in it, it's kind of crazy. But then I said to Heather, look, you did such a good job of playing Drax, the autistic character, would you play Crocodile, my lead? Because I think you'd be brilliant at it. And the way she delivers it's just so deadpan, exactly how I wanted it. So we did Crocodile, and then I thought, well, okay, well, Crocodile's in her 30s, and it was my angry story about, I was angry when I got diagnosed, not because I was autistic, but I was angry that I was only finding out now. And then I thought, well, what would that look like for women who were older? So I started thinking about Mole, and Mole's set in Wales, so Crocodile's English. I wanted to kind of move the geography, and I set Mole in Wales, and she's in her 50s. And motherhood is a very big theme in all of my work as well, because I think there's lots of different ways to be a mother or not to be a mother, or the other mother. And motherhood plays out through all my work. Motherhood comes out. So Mole's in her 50s, and she talks about the fact that she didn't have children and her later life diagnosis. And she befriends a woman in the village who lost her little boy. And you know, what's it like to be a mother when you've lost your child? You know, who are you anymore? And that whole conversation about autism, she realizes that her little boy probably was autistic that she lost. So it'll make you cry. Honestly, Mole will make you cry.
I feel emotional. You're just telling me I'm going to be a wreck.
I mean, that one's going to make you cry. But then, you know, she talks about meltdowns, and in her 50s, having a meltdown about a Chinese takeaway. So, and then Kitty is a final play, which, you know, obviously got Miriam Margolyes as the lead. And the play's about her and her two granddaughters who go on this road trip across Scotland. One is a neurotypical granddaughter who's a big corporate person who ends up getting put on sabbatical. And her other daughter, a bit like yourself and me, Sally, has had a million jobs because she can't hold them down because of autism and ADHD. And she wants to have a baby, and she's like, well, I froze my eggs quite a few years ago, but I'm really worried about having an autistic child, because I know how hard it was to be autistic and that dilemma. So what she did was she froze her eggs before she had her autism diagnosis, so that they wouldn't know. Because if they didn't know, then they'll be whatever they'll be, you know. Obviously that makes sense, doesn't it?
That's fantastic.
Of course it does. So by the end, you know, so her journey for the 3 days, and what is it, you know, is should I defrost my eggs? So, you know, that's what that's about. So it's women at different ages, all dealing with the later life diagnosis of autism. Motherhood comes in, but they're crazy stories. They're not about them being autistic. They're just crazy stories.
Yeah.
And you've got that woven into it.
But certainly if you're neurodivergent, and you'll recognize it. It's like the book I'm writing at the moment, I say on the back, okay, I've got autism, you know, I'm autistic and ADHD. But because I've only just found out, you know, all my younger life up until the age of 56, there's no point me talking about it because I didn't know I was it. But you will know, because of my childhood and everything that went wrong and all the, oh my God, hold on to your seats. And, you know, because you'll know. And so, but it's so fascinating for neurotypicals as well, because the whole point is that there's a hell of a lot of 80% of the neurotypicals out there who would take so much from us neurodivergent people and just see us as really, really interesting, funny, witty, clever people. You know, don't you think?
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think that's what I'm trying to do, just to have the dialogue, tell stories. And I always use humor, and people are like, you're telling jokes about autistic people. No, I'm not telling jokes about autistic people. I'm telling, it's a comedy. It's a funny story. And I think if you can laugh about situations, it makes it a lot easier to digest. And hopefully, you know, I think people will learn a lot. But I think by the time you listen to the trilogy, you learn a lot about autism without being told or reading a textbook.
And there's some fantastic comedians, aren't there? And I can't remember the names of them now. Oh gosh, but that's, you know, you just look.
Gadsby.
What's her name?
Hannah Gadsby's.
Oh yeah, she's fantastic, and she was the first lady, you know, the first person that I listened to. And there's a lady up north, but you can Google, you know, and they're absolutely, you know, they are absolutely brilliant. And because as a psychotherapist, one of the groups of people that I see are paramedics, and their humour is so dark, and it has to be. But actually, they're not coming to me because they're in trauma because what they've seen on their shout. they're very empathic people, and they're very, very, you know, they're very caring people, and a lot of them are neurodivergent, a lot of them have ADHD, and some of them have got traits of autism, and it's absolutely brilliant. And well, they're not traits of autism, they are autistic, for goodness sake, and they absolutely are. So, you know, I like to ask my guests something kind of when we're starting to wind up the recording, really, in the session, there we are, I can't get the word session out of my head, is it's that thing. So, you know, how would you like to see positive change at home, at school, and in the workplace to help all neurodivergent people feel included and valuable members of society? I know it's a big question, but if you can just see it as an organic sort of, you know, how would you picture that?
I think, I mean, that is a massive question. I think, you know, being gay as well, it's taken, gosh, probably my entire life for the LGBT story or you know, existence to be on telly, you know, to be on EastEnders, to be on films, and actually the fact that they're gay is not a thing anymore. They're just gay. It's not about them being gay. It's taken my whole life, you know, having watched that unfold in the media and you know, in literature or whatever. So this is not going to be a quick fix for us. You know, neurodivergence is not going to be accepted quickly. Education's got to come along, but it can't be through a textbook. It's got to be through stories. It's got to be through shared experience. It's got to be from you and I being honest and standing up and saying what it's like and getting that across to people. And it's like Alison Knowles, who's written this book with Ollie and his superpowers. It's about making materials. Unfortunately, it's about all these things. It's lots and lots of things, isn't it? It's not going to be any kind of quick fix. It's a commitment to culture change. That's what it is. And that, you know, acknowledging neurodivergence matters, not tokenistic stuff, you know.
No, but it has to be somewhere, because I'm a newbie as well. I found it so frustrating. You know, there was one point I was getting so upset and everything was getting complicated, and I was kind of thinking to myself, blimey, I wish I hadn't got diagnosed now, because I got all wrapped up in the pronouns around, you know, gender and sexuality. And I thought, let me just talk, please, because we're not even talking about my own story. You know, I'm not even thinking about all my life, thinking, you know, not being absolutely sure of where I sit. But please don't keep shouting at me about how to articulate it, because I'm just trying to get my head around it at the moment. And you know, and I just need to talk. And if I was a stand-up comedian, I'd get into all sorts of trouble, because I just need to tell my authentic story at the moment. And I really would like neurodivergent people not to get caught up on how to tell their story. I'd like them just to be able to tell their story however it looks just at the moment, you know, and we're the people that are going to do it. I think. What do you think about that, about terminology and politics?
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, having grown up, been gay my whole life, I've grown up through lots of interesting language changes about how I've been referred to over that time. And I've been the LGBT chair of a couple of big corporates. And what I always say is, just because I'm gay, just because I'm autistic, does not mean I'm going to get this language right. And I'm not going to know all the words all the time. And I do honestly think that the language of diversity is changing at lightning speed. Okay. It's very, very difficult to keep up with it, whoever you are, unless you're doing it as a full-time job all the time, reading policies and papers. I think it's better to talk about it and get the words wrong, but do it with the right intent, than not to talk about it. It's always better to talk about it and get yourself in a pickle, and then, you know, have that conversation. Always.
I agree. And I'm not going to you know, I will only say sorry for something that I've really done wrong and I've hurt somebody. I'm not going to keep saying sorry because I've said something wrong. And luckily, the wonderful guests that I'm having on this podcast are like you. Thank you so much. And they do understand, and it is important. And I just don't want to get involved in this pitchforks at dawn, because, there are a lot of people in the autistic community who they were diagnosed as Asperger's. So I'm not going to suddenly take that away from them, and things are going to change. Let's have dialogue. Awareness is great. Action is better. But I don't care what it is, as long as we're talking. And let's just talk, and let's talk to each other and be friendly as much as we can. And what I'll do is all these podcasts are going to be put together and come out as one series of podcasts, and I'll talk to you about, please, having all the links. But if you can just wrap up what people should look for when they want to find out about, what do you like to call yourself, and who should we look for, and where?
If you go onto Spotify, iTunes, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, or Anchor, any of the big platforms, it's easy probably to type my name in, Samantha Grierson Schwartz. If you type those names into there, it'd be easier probably to find it. You can Google me. I'm all over Google. I've got a Facebook page. I'm on LinkedIn. So if you struggle, find me on Facebook, and I'll send you the link. But I mean, I really, really would love other neurodivergent people to listen to my plays. That's why I've done it, to put us out there, to give us a voice, and to tell our stories.
Thank you so much, Sam. I've really, really enjoyed talking with you today. And I think, I hope maybe you can come back on the podcast again. But, until you do, and look after lovely little Doogie, and I can't wait. I'm going to go on some lovely long walks and listen to your audio plays. I really can't wait. Thank you so much again, and take care for now, and awesome. All the best. Thank you.
Sally. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much for listening to the Neurodivergence and Mental Health podcast. Links and resources will be at the end in the show notes. I very much look forward to meeting you again. Thanks for listening. Bye.